Hi there. I have been recording periodic videos about some of the parts of military life that are impacting me currently as we're in the middle of a PCS. And for our family, this is one like we've never done before because my husband reported ahead of the kids and I, and we'll be joining him in a few weeks. And if you have followed along for very long, or if you're a military spouse yourself, you know that there are a lot of challenges that come along with this unique lifestyle. I've shared some of the ones that have dealt a little more tactically with moving, but today I want to talk about something that I think plagues many of us, and I have been personally feeling this as well, and that is frustration about your professional life. So over the last couple of weeks, in preparation for moving to a new place, I have been doing what I always do, which is I've scoured the internet. I have gone to sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, in my case as a teacher, I have gone to school, like county and city school board sites with employment links. Also check out colleges that are hiring, and I start doing the legwork for trying to piece together some type of job for the new duty station. And I sat last night after filling out, I believe this time it's my 7th application. And as you know, they all require different things, different documents, new cover letters, ways of contacting references. And I was just kind of sitting in my frustration. And in fact, I finally finished an application and I emailed it to Ryan, forwarded it along to him, and just kind of wrote a few sentences about how tired and frustrated. And I said, I'm actually kind of sitting in my anger right now. And the anger isn't really directed at Ryan. The anger isn't really directed specifically at the military. We chose this life, but it's okay to say you're frustrated. It's okay to feel like sometimes this asks more of us than we feel like we have to give. And I want to talk a little bit today about some of the frustrations I think we all feel, share a little bit with you just about my own kind of professional journey through the last several years as a military family, and then hopefully offer you a perspective shift and some things to think about for yourself to keep a good frame of mind and a good attitude about this professional piece of moving. So for starters, I know that among military spouses, you really do find the gamut from person who wants to stay at home full time, who does, and this is not a no shade or no slam to anybody, but someone who maybe doesn't have professional or career aspirations, like you are super content staying home and being in a more of a support role, all the way to the person or the spouse who is very into their career and has really put it above all else, maybe even to the detriment of other parts of their life. I'll just leave that kind of there. And then you've got everything in between. And I tend to find that I have fallen somewhere in between. Even before we got into the military, as a family, we both valued, at least while our kids were really, really young, for the most part, me having the flexibility to be at home with them. Part of that was like a conviction. Part of that was just practical. We had 3 kids under 4 years old, and I could not have earned enough money to cover full-time daycare for them in my chosen field of teaching. So even before the military came into the picture, we were making choices as a family financially to really try to live on one income and prioritize as I was able to be at home mostly with our kids. Now, I never completely quit working. I have always done something part-time, whether that's been part-time adjunct teaching or little side hustles along the way. There have been very few seasons where I've just literally not had any kind of employment. So the first 10 years of our marriage, I was already kind of in that mode of kind of picking up and setting down my career. Then when the military came into the picture for us, our kids were around, 4, 6, and 8 at the time. And we had just moved to our first duty station. I was homeschooling them for the first time. And I knew at least that first year I needed to probably kind of let's just assimilate the family, and now isn't the moment to be searching for jobs. And I left behind, I think I had been at the university I was teaching at for about 7 or 8 years off and on, doing part-time teaching kind of in between babies and as they had the need for part-time help. So I got out there, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit everything to volunteering and homeschooling. But then after about a year of that, I was starting to feel that familiar desire to contribute financially and to feel professionally fulfilled. So unfortunately, the area we moved to within the community of that base, it was Fort Bliss, Texas, it was a predominantly Hispanic culture. And just about everywhere I was applying, especially in the field of education, it required a proficiency in Spanish and like to be to the point that you were like fluent. And I was definitely not fluent. I had taken a couple of semesters in college, but I was basically unemployable out there because of my own language barriers. So I continued to just plug into volunteer opportunities, and although I wasn't earning money for anything really I did out there, I was at least fulfilling myself in some of those ways that professional work had previously fulfilled me, because I was volunteering, I was teaching in volunteer roles like in Bible studies. I did do some writing, I did have a little tiny paid gig right before we moved, but by the time we moved to our second duty station, I was really ready to get back to some kind of work. And so I'm not going to go through my entire employment history, but basically I spent the next several years, the 3 years we were in Evans, Georgia, even though we were still homeschooling, I was able to balance and juggle military life, homeschooling kids, family with some part-time and even one or two semesters of full-time college load teaching, and loved it, enjoyed it, finally felt like I was probably earning for the first time like what I was actually worth in terms of age and years of experience and education. And as you know, it would be time to move before too long. So from there, we had a real short 6-month stint at Ryan's career course. Wasn't able to work then, but that's when I really started thinking through this idea of like, what can I do that's location independent? What can I start building up that can either passively earn me income, or I can do kind of remotely. And just as a disclosure here, you will never hear me promote multi-level marketing. I'm not shaming on people who have done it. That's just not me. So for me, that passive and remote digital kind of work looked like freelancing. I also did some teaching contracts or grading contracts through like the College Board to grade ACT writing tests. I have graded AP tests. And so as we were kind of transitioning away from that career course, we moved on to Louisiana, spent the first few months there, still kind of feeling that desire to work, but didn't know really how that would look. Ended up teaching at a private school 1 year. That ended. We thought we were moving. A pandemic hit. You know the drill. And then since we've been here at Fort Campbell, I have also gone through what feels like at times excruciating process of trying to find a job. And it took me, I have a little note in my phone. I was keeping track of every job I applied for. I think at my last count, it was something like 13 to 15 jobs I applied for. I was hired as a substitute. I have a master's degree in almost 20 years of teaching, and I got hired as a substitute on post, which wasn't really a great fit. It was too unpredictable with the hours they needed me and me still needing to maintain availability for other things. And then I did get hired finally by Austin Peay State University, where I taught for a semester before we got to the point we're at now, which is a big move coming up, 3 very active kids, and a husband who's leaving ahead of time. So I have made an attempt just about everywhere we've gone to try to find my fit professionally, while also maintaining what I feel is a very active role in Ryan's military service through volunteering and involvement at our chapels and within our neighborhoods and other various agencies and groups. So I know that's not for everybody. Again, some people are like, this is our life, I'm not trying to work. And some people are like, this is my career. That comes before anything military related. I find myself in the middle somewhere, and maybe you do too. So last night, I'm finishing up this application for a job that's now the 7th I've applied for since we got news of where we were PCSing. And I went back to follow up on a couple of the other jobs, and 4 of those 7 are within the local public school system. And 4 that I've applied for, 3 have now just completely disappeared and closed. And what I know, because this is a field I've been in, those jobs that I've applied for that were super, it just felt like something I would enjoy, they were probably filled internally. And I know that that's how it works, but even that started frustrating me last night. So here's where the tension lies in this, and here's where the major frustration lies. At my age, this many years past college, with this many years of experience, the season of life where I find myself, where my kids are really not needing me as much, like day to day, and I have the bandwidth, I hate to overuse that word, but I do, I have more bandwidth now to fully embrace a more full-time role in a job. I just felt very frustrated because I feel like I was with a friend last weekend who we both started teaching at the same school at the same time. I stayed about 4 years and we've since, moved on. She's still there. And I think in my head, I'm kind of comparing like, well, what if I had stayed? What if I had the longevity that she has? What if I had the reputation and the benefit of really like building into that community? And I think that's one of the main pain points for me, is that I recognize that because of our military service, one of the sacrifices that's been made has been that longevity and stability. Not like I'm looking for some kind of fame or notoriety, but I do think there's something that comes with that as you're able to build a reputation professionally. And I've missed out on that. I've just missed it. And I have gotten accolades from various jobs and awards here and there, but like it's just not the same as like the full like being known piece. And so that's been a big frustration. And then on a like logistic level, I was super frustrated last night because I have filled out, no kidding, in the 10 years we've been in, if it's less than 100 applications or, resume updates, LinkedIn updates, shifting the information, trying to ask references to say a good thing about you. Like I asked my previous boss from the Austin Peay job I just left, and she was happy to write it and like said some really sweet things. But like, what am I gonna like email my boss from 3 years ago in Louisiana who I haven't really kept up with? And am I gonna ask my boss from Georgia that it's now been like 6 years since I worked for him and he may not, I don't even know if he's still at the college. So like, there's just this huge level of frustration. And then I feel like I'm continuing to apply for jobs that, again, hear me, I'm not saying like anything is beneath me. I'm just saying like for the age and the years of experience I have, I do feel like I shouldn't be just starting at entry-level positions everywhere we go. Not even just from like a financial standpoint, but from a just skill and experience and expertise standpoint. And so I was feeling really frustrated about that last night. Just that whole like, how many more applications? Why can't I just be in a job and stay there? Like, what? I'm just super frustrated that I keep having to like switch all this up. And then I get frustrated when I actually physically look at my resume because I see all the holes in it. And I'm thinking, if I were an HR person, or if I were in the position to hire somebody and I saw my resume, I would be like, thank you, next. I mean, who wants to hire somebody with so many gaps and holes? And that's gaps and holes with somebody who's prioritized trying to find some type of work everywhere I've been. So that's been super frustrating. So I've kind of just been sitting in this for the last couple of days, and I try my best not to let that become like a negative soundtrack or a negative mindset. So today I said, okay, I've got to flip this around and I've got to come up with some things that I can kind of like repeat, either some phrases or some key like self-talk, talking points about what's the good in this? What's the good in it? Because right now I've been focusing on all of the bad. So here's what I found for me that I can focus on right now to help change my outlook. So the first thing I think I can see as a good thing to come out of this is I have had a broad experience of jobs, and even better, I have had a broad exposure to a lot of wonderful people. I have had great bosses everywhere I've been. I have made friends and had close friendships in every like work situation and scenario that I have had. And even though it frustrates me to have to kind of like backpedal to figure out references and professional recommendations, it's an opportunity for me to check back in with these people that did contribute and make life at each duty station worthwhile. So that's a good thing. Another thing that I consider a positive is I am getting to do a lot of varied things. I mentioned my friend earlier who I spent time with last weekend. There's a part of me that envies her. I think, oh, the stability and there may be part of my life that she envies too. Like maybe she envies my freedom and the way that I've been able to like see a lot of places and live a lot of places and have a lot of varied experiences with work. So it's really like that whole the grass is greener on the other side. Like it's not necessarily greener on the other side. I've had a lot of great experiences, and I just need to go back and instead of seeing like the negative of like, oh, I only worked there 6 months or that was only a year and time to go. What a great year I had as a 4th grade teacher, doing something I never thought I would do and getting the chance to work at a school that my kids attended, and they got to go to private school for pennies on the dollar. And my teaching in Augusta, what a great opportunity to see if I wanted to be a full-time university instructor. I did not after I did that. So I'm trying to look at the many facets of all this experience and see that in a good light. So that's also been good. I also feel really, really grateful that I have, you hear people say you can't have it all. And it's kind of true, you can't. But in a way, I do feel like I've been able to have it all, because when it was important and more crucial for me to be at home with our kids, we've been able to make that work. Whenever I have had the opportunity, can you see my dog in the reflection? She's looking out the window. It's trash day, and so she's looking to see, I see you. Yeah. But I have had the opportunity to be really, really flexible with my career, and I have been able to give it my all. And then I've been able to step back, and it's been nice to do that professionally. It's been nice to have that flexibility financially to do that. And so while it is frustrating that I don't feel like I have a lot of longevity in my career, I can say I've had a lot of flexibility in my career. And particularly last year, I wasn't finding any work, and it turned out that in that season of not working, my dad passed away suddenly. So for those of us who are people of faith, we can sometimes see the bigger picture and the ways that maybe God is looking out for us in those times to allow us to prioritize what is important. And sometimes it's the job that's important, and sometimes it's other things. So that's a huge takeaway for me on how I can be thankful. The other thing is, 2 more. Number 1, I am really, really grateful that I have had the chance to hone some skills that have made some remote work and some like digital nomad type work possible. So in my field of teaching, I have been able to create digital resources on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I continue to add to that a little at a time over the years, and I sell those, and it's passive income. It's not a whole lot, but it's an opportunity where I feel like I'm contributing to the world of education. I'm putting resources out that I know teachers love. I think at the last count, I've had over 2,000 resources downloaded and paid for by other teachers. So I continue to kind of like hone that. I've also had the opportunity, this is to me kind of adjacent as an English teacher, but I have really built up my writing. And there was a time 10 years ago when I was just in the midst of like blogging about everyday stuff for our family. I was like, man, I wish I could get paid for this. And now 10 years later, I'm getting paid to write content for blogs. It's not about my family, but there is a certain amount of time you need to put in, I think. And I feel like I'm reaping the rewards from that. So that's something that's really important, I think, to recognize, is that I have these means of earning a little bit of money. I've been on a couple of different other projects that have been short-term, like contract type things for, like I said, for grading. And I have to remember that there are really no limits to the opportunities available, that there's no shortage of those, that there's no scarcity involved in that I can continue to find ways creatively to explore my passions and professional interests. And then the last thing that I would say that's been good to come out of this is, when it's all said and done, as frustrating as it feels, I have had the ability to make choices in my own life. Life isn't happening to me. I am happening to my life. Nobody's forced me to be, part-time. Nobody's forced me to end jobs a few months ahead of a PCS. I've made those choices myself. So the buck stops with me. And I have to remember that I cannot place all of my frustration on the military, who doesn't care, or our branch, who doesn't care, or Ryan, who cares, but it's not really his fault. So that's been the biggest takeaway from me, is just owning up to the role that I have played in this, and only doing what I can do and just letting the chips fall where they may. So this job I applied for yesterday, on paper, it sounds like the perfect job. And I'll just tell you that it's actually something that would give me some insight into something I've had an interest in for quite some time. For about a decade, I've toyed with going back to get another degree in library science. I think it would be super fun to be a librarian. I think it would marry a lot of my interests and passions. And there is a job I've applied for at William & Mary that involves being a supervisor of circulation materials and then also over a team of about 20 students. And so setting the expectations really, really low that I'll get this. Again, I'm having to like kind of not fudge, but I'm having to like change up my resume to make it look librarianish instead of college instructor or high school teacher. And had to write a cover letter. And I just decided last night that so much of this is out of my hands, and I do think I have an impressive resume. I do think I know how to write a good cover letter, but I decided last night in that cover letter that I was not going to go all like stuffy and highfalutin, but rather I decided to start the letter, instead of to whom it may concern, I just started it, Friends of the Library. And at the end of it, I was like, you know what? What do I have to lose? Like, I literally have nothing to lose. So I sent it in, and we'll see. It could be in another week or two, I end up putting a little dot by this job that's like filled, you know, passed over, whatever. But I've just decided that nobody can like change my outlook and my mindset but me. And I have got to figure out a way and try to maintain a sense of humor and a sense of peace about this life. And I know it's super frustrating, and I know it can be demanding of us emotionally and physically, relationally, all the things. But I just want to encourage you, if you are kind of on that far end of don't really care, don't really want a job, or my career is everything, or somewhere in between like me and probably most people, I encourage you, not only don't give up, I encourage you to keep your resume as up to date as possible. I encourage you to maintain friendship and communication, open lines of communication with people that you may end up needing to use as references. And most of all, I encourage you to keep a good outlook as much as you can. Try to hunt the good stuff. Try to think about the blessings and the good that have come of your career, no matter how piecemeal it may feel, because at the end of the day, like, we can only do what we can do. And we can only impact and affect the people that are around us, whether that's in our homes or in our workplaces. So go out and be the best you can and keep the best attitude that you can. And I will hopefully update you within the next weeks or months, hopefully, that I have been able to find gainful employment. Thanks for watching.